While football's GOAT debate temporarily roared this past winter, and basketball's debate seems never-ending, the realization arrived that that subject is rarely discussed in the national pastime. It's not necessarily because there is a universally agreed upon greatest player of all time, like in hockey, but because the conversation is inherently very layered. Major League Baseball is over 150 years old, and the game has changed so much while also keeping many key elements, which makes the discussion so difficult. Let's go into all the factors that make this conversation continue to go in circles. I'm Chris Gionta from Above Replacement Radio, and today I'm talking about the complicated conversation about the greatest baseball player of all time. What makes baseball's GOAT debate so unique is that it involves players from such different time periods. A significant portion, if not most baseball fans, would say Babe Ruth is the greatest baseball player of all time, and he retired 90 years ago. Meanwhile, in football, the debate now largely revolves around Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, who have each exclusively played in the 21st century. Even when NFL Network did its top 100 players of all time list in 2010, 4 of the top 5 players on that list retired in 1987 or later. In basketball, the two main players discussed in the GOAT debate are Michael Jordan and LeBron James. Jordan retired after the 2003 season, and James is still playing. In football, much of the reason the debate is most reserved for more modern players is because of the evolution of the passing game and the added importance it gives to certain players. Quarterback is considered the most important position in football by a wide margin. Baseball does not really have a position that carries that distinct level of value. Each of the top 15 highest paid NFL players for the 2025 season are quarterbacks, while no position in MLB is represented more than 4 times in the league's top 15. Since 1936, the year after Babe Ruth retired from baseball, pass completions per game have more than tripled. In the Super Bowl era alone, that number has increased 43%. The point is that the game's most important position has gained more and more importance over time. Meanwhile, in baseball, hitters still only come up once every 9 times, just like they did when Babe Ruth played. Sure, pitchers don't throw as many innings as they used to, but pitchers are never really discussed in baseball's GOAT debate. I've never seen a couple dudes go at it about if Walter Johnson or Barry Bonds was better. The NBA does not necessarily have the same distinction as football does, but the league started 29 years after the NFL, 80 years after the MLB, and also 14 years after Babe Ruth retired. With football, the changes in its game have resulted in the modernization of its GOAT debate. The top 6 players in career approximate value, which is football's loose version of wins above replacement, all either retired in the 21st century or are still playing. As you may notice, 5 of the 6 are quarterbacks, while Jerry Rice was a wide receiver who surely benefited from the growing passing game throughout his career. In basketball, everyone in the top 6 in career win shares retired in 1973 or later. In baseball, only 1 of the top 6 players in career wins above replacement retired in the last 50 years. Even in a game where the home run is more relied upon, the career home run record has been held by Barry Bonds for 18 years, and it was held by Henry Aaron for 33 years before him, and it was held by Babe Ruth for 53 years before him. Not to mention, Connecticut's very own Roger Connor held the record for 26 years before Babe Ruth. Meanwhile, in football, the passing yards record has been held for 4 years by Tom Brady, and it was held by Drew Brees for 3 years before him, while it was held by Peyton Manning for only 3 years before him. Since the statistical output in baseball can be so similar with careers a century apart, it can make the discussion about who is better much more difficult. It's why we can talk about Babe Ruth versus Barry Bonds and not Arnie Herber versus Tom Brady. You may ask, well, we have all these stats for baseball, why can't we just go off of those to determine who's best? That's where the conversation gets complicated. The game has evolved, so where do we draw the line in rewarding players within its evolution? Babe Ruth leads all MLB players in total career baseball reference wins above replacement by a significant margin. However, if you talk to a lot of younger baseball fans, they would besmirch his case of being the greatest of all time. And even as someone who personally enjoys the deep history of the game, I would have to say they would make a lot of fair points. The first, and probably the most important, is that Ruth never played during integration. Not only was this tremendously unfair to black players, but it also diminished the quality of the product and competition in the American and National Leagues. Ruth was not necessarily playing against the best players in America at the time, but only the best white players. And it was clear to see how much that concept affected the game Ruth played in when integration finally happened, as from 1959 to 1968, which were the first 10 years after all MLB teams had integrated, the top 3 players in position position player F wore were black. Even taking integration out of the equation, the game has indubitably gotten better throughout time. As more information gets discovered, athletes improve, whether it's through better nutrition, training regimens, technique improvements, growth in technology, among many other things. Players are also much more dedicated from younger ages, with travel baseball programs basically starting as soon as these kids can walk. From a numerical sense, just since 2008, which is as far back as the pitch tracking era goes, the league average four-seam fastball has gotten 2.4 miles per hour faster. Just imagine how much faster it's gotten since Babe Ruth's time. Of course, velocity isn't everything, but hitters do worse against higher velocity. On four-seamers 94 miles per hour or below in 2024, the league slugged 477. On four-seamers 94 miles per hour or above in 2024, the league slugged 385. Some people might say that the extra velocity has come at the cost of control, when in reality, the Major League walk rate peaked in the late 1940s and early 1950s. That's not to say that velocity is the only evidence necessary to show baseball has evolved, but it's the best quantitative data we have available. Also, every sport naturally evolves. 20 out of the 24 male track Olympic records, as well as all 16 of the male swimming Olympic records, were set in the 21st century. The athletes in those sports have gotten better. Why would baseball be any different? Especially when you consider the financial reward of being an MLB player and how that motivates kids and families to push hard for that opportunity. So, it's established that Babe Ruth did not play against the best competition. However, considering the game continues evolving, the game gets better after anyone retires. So, Barry Bonds, who many in my generation proclaim is the greatest baseball player of all time, also did not play against the best competition. I mentioned that the average four-seamer has gone up 2.4 miles per hour since 2008, and that was the year after Bonds retired. Many talk about how Babe Ruth would not survive today's game, which is an argument I believe to be true. If you put 1927 Babe Ruth in a time machine and put him up against 2025 pitching, I do not think he would even be above replacement. But if you put 1993 Barry Bonds in a time machine, I think there is no way he would be MVP caliber, nor would I think he would be a top 25 player. Now, if you put 2001 Barry Bonds in a time machine, he'd be suspended. He would be suspended. Now, I'm not of the party to put Barry Bonds' performance-enhancing drug use against his Hall of Fame case, because he largely did PEDs before their use became punishable in 2005, and he did not get caught through MLB's policy after it became punishable. But if you want to make the argument about who would do best against today's players, you can't really point at Barry Bonds' 1999 to 2004 stats for that argument, because he would not be able to get those statistics with modern PED rules. Unless, of course, you believe he would have his 4 best seasons in on-base percentage by at least 35 points, 4 best slugging seasons by at least 61 points, and 4 best OPS seasons by at least 142 points in his age 36 through age 39 seasons without PEDs. And without being enhanced in those seasons, I can't imagine he breaks the career home run record, and with a natural aging curve, I believe he would have had closer to 6 WAR per year from 1999 to 2004 as opposed to 9, which would take away about 20 career WAR. Now, if baseball evolves, does that just make whoever the best current player is the greatest of all time? That could technically be true. I do think that if you put all players from their prime into a time machine and brought them into today's game, Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge would still be the best 2 players in the sport. However, I wouldn't crown them the greatest players of all time, because I don't think the GOAT debate is about who would do the best today. Athletes naturally gain more and more advantages as their sports evolve. Ohtani doesn't have to travel via overnight train like the players from the 1930s and before had to. Judge did not feel the need to dress up like a girl to play in a girls' baseball league to get some extra reps in like Rogers Hornsby did. Tarek Skubal's offseason work did not consist of hitting a spot on a barn 20 times before hunting like Lefty Grove's offseason work did. Had Ruth, Hornsby, and Grove been born in 2000 with modern coaching, training, nutrition, technology, and general youth opportunities, I think it's very possible they would be successful in the current game. And if Ohtani, Judge, and Skubal were born in 1900, I doubt they'd turn out to hit baseballs 118 miles per hour nor throw them 103 miles per hour. While recognizing that players from a long time ago would not do very well in the modern game with their 1920 skill sets, we also have to recognize that it wasn't really up to them. They were doing what they could with what they had, and ended up doing the best against the players they played against. That's the same for Bonds, that's the same for Ohtani and Judge, and that's going to be the same for whoever the best players are 20, 50, and 100 years from now. If you asked me who I thought the greatest baseball player of all time was, I would not give you a straight answer. Instead, I'd give you 3 answers to different questions. I think Babe Ruth has the greatest career numbers of all time. He accumulated the most total wins above replacement of all time and has the highest slugging, OPS, and OPS plus of all time, and did it in over 10,000 plate appearances, all while throwing over 1,200 innings with a 1.22 ERA+. I think Shohei Ohtani is the best player to ever grace a baseball field. It's not because he has accumulated career numbers anywhere close to Ruth or Bonds, but because I think he is the best player in the world when the game is at its best. I'm sure this opinion will be different in 2050 or even before then. I think if you did a simulation where all the players in MLB history grew up in the same era, followed the same coaching and training, and also played under the same rules, Willie Mays would have the best career among that group. He has the second most WAR since integration and did not have assistance in his mid-30s to early 40s through performance-enhancing drugs like the player ahead of him did. His astounding career numbers are despite missing almost 2 full seasons of his career due to Korean War service immediately after winning Rookie of the Year. And before the Bonds Brigade gets at me, I still think Bonds would have one of the best careers of all time in that simulation, steroids or no steroids. I just don't think he would be the greatest of all time. And I have the same thoughts with Babe Ruth. Now, I'd love to hear all your stances and what you think of mine. Did I change your perspective at all? Are you still firm with whatever your original stance was? If you like this video, be sure to watch my other 2 video essays, and feel free to enjoy the podcast I do with the great Daniel Curran on this channel. But that's all. See you soon.